Oh. Ho. Awasan na pechuza pero. Wakio ho este mani hechi di makia piwipazoka wakpa hechi di tawa hi. Blame it all on my roots. Those are my relatives on the wall over there on the screen. Those two horses. Wounhdakapte. It means we're going to talk. And we can't talk if your mouths are going. We listened. Thank you. It's good to see everybody here today. I want all of the men in here to give the women a round of applause. They're our first language teachers. I'd like to recognize the women. I'd like to recognize our elders. I'd like to recognize the drum group for the beautiful songs that they sang here this morning. I'm very honored to be able to come here today and to take part in this event. I'm very proud of Yellow Quill College. I'm a graduate of Yellow Quill College as well. I went to school there years ago in the economic development program. Prior to that, I went to Assiniboine Community College and I worked in Verdun as an ag rep. I instructed non-native farmers on the latest techniques of land management. That was a long time ago. And obviously that didn't work out. They didn't want to listen to a young native man, so I went to Yellow Quill College and took on economic development, and it helped me immensely in my career. I learned a lot from there, and I made a lot of lifelong friends, and I'm still in touch with a lot of them today. I'm going to go through this as quickly and painlessly as I can. I know I have a clicker here somewhere. Yeah, here we go. That's me at Prairie Island, Powell. I dance men's traditional in the summertime, or whenever I get a chance to dance at a powwow, I'll put on my stuff on. Hemye. Atewage iom naji hechi ichiapi. Inawage zitkara dutawi hechi ichiapi. I've been involved in language for quite a long time. I've been trying to relearn my language since I was very young. Since 2013, after I graduated Brandon University, I was given an opportunity to come back to the university and to teach language at the university. So I've been teaching language since 2013 there, and I'm currently over at University of Manitoba as well, teaching Dakota over there. I love what I do. I believe it's very, very important work that we're doing as language teachers. I left my warning there. Warning, the following information may be disturbing for some viewers. I didn't put nudity or violence up there because that's not the kind of conference this is. I heard it all my life. My family spoke Dakota all my life. Atewage, inawage, Dakota Wounhdakapte. Chewage, hena ija Dakota studiapi. Tankewage, na all. Wasn't head Dakota studiapi, ukachnikapi. I heard that growing up, Hechidi Chachma. But I lost it after school. I lost it after I started going to school, and I would try here and there, but people would make fun of me. They'd laugh at some of the things that I would say, or if I mispronounced something, they'd laugh. They never corrected me. I was also taught growing up at a young age that if I didn't speak my language, if I didn't speak Dakota, then I wasn't a Dakota person. And that got me very angry. My grandmother, my grandfather, my auntie, they've always said that to me. If you don't speak Dakota, you can't call yourself a Dakota. And so that inspired me. And I always thought I am a Dakota. I don't care if I don't speak my language, it's in me. But I realized later on in life that I had to understand my language. I had to do this in order to call myself a Dakota. And now I understand what they're saying. I did a Hombre Tia and asked for my language to come back. Hombre Tia. I want to see how they say Hombre Tia over here. Hombre Tia is a vision quest. I sat in a lodge for 4 days, 4 nights, with no food, no water, and I prayed to Wakantanka for my language to come back. And it came back like a flood. And that's how I got my language back. And we understand that our language is very, very sacred, so ceremony is a big part of my learning. Today I share those things with my class, how I got my language back. My classes are going through the same thing, trying to get their language back. So I show them and explain to them how I do it. I'm not going to show you statistics because we all know what they are. Our language is said to have come from a creator. We have been successful in maintaining our culture, our ceremonies, because our language contains certain messages. Our languages, our indigenous languages, if you really study our languages, you realize that they have hidden things, hidden information within our language. Counseling techniques, coping mechanisms, our history, our ceremonies, our laws. If we're losing those things in our life, our language will always bring those back to life if we lose our ceremonies. It's all in our language. So those are the important reasons why we need to bring our languages back. Our languages had a very rough transition. Our languages were targeted. We all know what happened. I have to give recognition to those in my community and those in your communities as well who maintained their language despite residential school, despite assimilation policies. When we speak our languages, there is a truth that's instilled, and we respect those who live the culture within their languages. This is an example of where our languages started to get destroyed. There was a man that was hanging around our community. His name was Father Gontran Lavalette. And he wrote a book called The Dakota Sioux in Canada. He seemed like a good man. He came around, he learned our culture, he learned our history, then he learned our language. And then he taught us how to manipulate our language. Prior to that, we always thought in our language, and we did things the right way in our language. When residential schools were church run, he was known to drive up to kids in the car, and he would say things like, "Taku washte wadaki ache." Do you want to see something good? And the little kids would say, "Yeah." And he'll say, "Here, taku washte chichipazoktero. Get in, I'm going to show you something good." And the little kids would get into the truck, and he'd drive them 30 miles to the residential school. This happened a lot. Not just in my community, probably in your communities as well. And he would drive back from the residential school back to my community, and he'll see little kids again, and he'll say, "Taku washte wadaki ache." Do you want to see something good? And they'll put kids in the truck again, back to the residential school. Unbelievable how our languages were targeted at that time. This era was a huge impact, and it's why we're struggling today. These are where we are struggling. We are struggling to have adequate resources to bring our languages back. One of the things that we're doing wrong is we're teaching language as a subject. We're not financially supported by our leadership when we're doing language work in our communities, and this is what we need to have happen. Going back to teaching language as a subject, when we teach language as a subject, it only gets 5% of the day in our schools, and then the rest of it is in English, maybe 10% of the day. That's where we're going wrong. We're not going to get our languages back by speaking little amounts, getting our kids to speak little amounts every day. It has to be implemented in all of the classes. Time management. What are your community's priorities? Do you want your children to learn the language, or do you want your semi-fluent speakers to become the next elders, the next knowledge keepers? We have to prepare them all. What is your priority? Is it dialect? Personally, I feel we've spent a lot of time discussing dialect, too much time. And we need to get busy saving and documenting and archiving our languages and teaching our languages, no matter what the dialect. We need safe spaces to speak our language. When I go around in the cities and I'm speaking Dakota with other people in the cities, they're very uncomfortable. My class, my high school or my college students, I took them to the mall in Brandon, and they wanted to skip out that day. They didn't want to come to class because they didn't want to speak Dakota in public. They were that scared, they were that terrified. But I made them go to the mall, and I planted fluent speakers in the mall. And those fluent speakers came up to them and started speaking to them in Dakota, and they had to answer them back. Land-based learning, that's what that was. It wasn't out on the land, it was in a mall, but it was still something that we have to do. Community goal setting, accurate language audits. When I go to communities and I say, how far are you in your language? And they say, oh, we have 70, 80 fluent speakers. And when I'm in there for a while, I realize they only have 4 or 5. Their pride tells you that they have 40, 50, 60 speakers, but they don't. We need to be honest with where we are when we're gathering our statistics, because we really are in worse shape than what we really think we are. The linguist approach is a good approach to archiving our language, but it's not a good approach to teaching our language, because you can't teach our language from a linguistic approach. Linguists don't understand our culture. Linguists don't know our history. Linguists don't know our ceremony. So the linguist approach has had a difficult effect on some of our language learners. The ones who are successful with the linguist approach are the ones who are already firmly based in their culture, firmly based in their ceremonies already. We're struggling with technology. We need to have ways to develop in technology and how we can use that in our schools, how we use our iPads, how we use our MacBooks, our computers, how we use our phones. When I walk into the class, the first thing I ask my students is, where's your phone? And they start putting it away and they start hiding, and I tell them, get your phone out. Every time I say something, record me. Every time you hear you're gonna say something, record yourself. Take videos as much as you can. Use your phone. When you hear somebody saying something that you don't know, write it in your notes app on your phone. Use your technology. It's the only way that they know, they understand this today. This is how they have to use their technology. This is an important line right here on the top. We are losing fluent speakers faster than we are learning our languages. We are losing fluent speakers faster than we are learning our languages. That's a scary statement. We have work to do. We need to develop resources that meets all levels of language learners. This next line, language preference is not enforced. You know, I've said for years, and I wish our political leaders were still here, I've said for years that when we're doing hiring in any organization or in our band offices or anything, that line that's at the bottom that says understanding or knowing or speaking an Indigenous language would be an asset. That line has to come to the top of the page if we're going to save our language. We have to restructure it and say your language is needed. And if you don't know your language, we have people who are here who are going to train. Take time every week to go to this class and learn the language so that you can operate our business in our language. Everybody, I don't care who it is, you have to know our language to come work in these organizations. If we don't do that, if we don't push that, we're going to lose our language. We lean on English too much, including our ceremony leaders. You know, our ceremony leaders don't speak in their language, and yet traditionally these things that come and speak to us in our ceremonies, they speak in the language. And if they don't understand the language, who are they talking to? How do they operate their ceremonies? That's a difficult thing for me to comprehend. A lot of them call me and they say, Kevin, I'm giving this person an Indian name. How do you translate it into Dakota? Well, they should have told you. They should have told you in ceremony. They should have told you in the language. But they're doing ceremonies and not knowing the language. Very difficult for our people, and I don't blame them. But I give them tips, I give them books, I give them videos to try to teach them how to speak the language. We are not trying hard enough to develop our languages as well. You know, our languages, there's so many things that we don't have words for. All around this room you see things that we don't have words for, and we need to get together as tribal groups to develop new words. And I know Patricia is doing this with Anishinaabe, but other groups aren't developing their languages. We're going to be stuck with historical languages that don't meet today's needs. So we need to work on developing our languages. Language educators are doing their best to meet everyone's needs. The next one is apathy. This is what's happening with our indigenous languages. Apathy. Someone else will learn it. Someone else will save it. And you can see this room was just packed a little while ago. Apathy. Someone else will save it. I'm going to go have a coffee. We have to think radical thoughts and do radical things if we want to save our languages, because what we're doing isn't working. I see a shift. Some people are doing some really great things. Malls here in Winnipeg, Indigenous Languages of Manitoba, the Seven Oaks. People are doing amazing things here. We're trying, but we need to do more. We need support. This is Tacan. In my community, we have buffalo. We were given a buffalo years ago, and it was a white cow. And we were told that this white cow would never have any calves. And we were so thankful that it came to our people, because it was a blessing. It was a blessing and a reminder for us to learn our ways. And buffalo won't breed unless they know they have enough water, unless they have enough hay, unless they have enough feed. They won't breed. So the first year there was no calves. They didn't know where they were. The second year they all started having calves. She had a brown calf. The next year after that she had another brown calf. The third year after that she had another brown one. After that she had a white calf, and another white calf, and another white calf, and another white calf. We have 5 white buffalo in our community. The prophecy of our white buffalo says, among my people, the Dakotas, say that it's a sign. It's a sign of the end of times. Not the end of the world, but the end of our time. We're going to cease to exist as Dakota people because we're losing our language, our history, our culture, our ceremonies. Without those, we can only call ourselves descendants of Dakota people. So they're coming as a purpose to our people. And our ceremony people, we got together, we did ceremony. One of the men said, it wants to see something good, that's why it came, that's why it's here. So we look after them, our community looks after them the best that we can. Those are prayer flags on there. And it's going up to the prayer flags to smell that person who put that flags up there and what the prayers are. They are Wakan. They are what we work for in our language so that we're able to communicate with them. When I started teaching Dakota, I understood that this language is Wakan. And the Jesuit priests and them that came to study our Dakota people at the time, they said Wakan is holy or sacred. The translation of that word is energy. There is Wakan in everything. Wakan Tanka is, I ask my students, where is Wakan Tanka? They point up. No, Wakan Tanka is all around in those trees, in the water, in the bush. This is why we fight for our land. This is why we fight for our water. Creator lives there, lives among us. I try these same approaches. I don't call my relatives in my classroom, I don't call them students, I call them relatives. I'm not above them. And I understand that they are sacred people. They're Wakanda. They have a role in their community. Maybe one of them is a political leader. Maybe one of them is medicines. Or maybe they all have different roles. So I call them relatives. I take my students on the first day of school to the hill, or I'll take them out to the bush and I'll say, go offer tobacco for your language. Any of you language teachers or any of you teachers out there who want to teach your kids something, take them to the hill, take them to the bush first, and say, and go and ask for that knowledge. And once they do that, then it's on them. It's on them to learn it. It's on them to retain it, not the teacher, not me. I'll give them all of the tools, all of the resources, teach them as best I can, but it's up to them to hang on to it, use it. It's not just a place, just a communication thing. There's so much involved in it. In my classroom, I'm focused on speaking. Reading and writing are just there to support their learning, but I make my students speak all the time. 70% of my class is speaking. They took my class to learn to speak, not to read Dakota. So I'm there to teach them to talk. One of the gentlemen that was singing here, he's in my class at the university. He's talking in phrases in the first class. And he's asking other students questions in phrases in the first class. They were responding in Dakota in phrases in the first class. And then I asked them, do you guys realize what you're doing? You're thinking in Dakota. You're not translating it from English to Dakota. You're thinking in Dakota now. That's where we want to get our students, thinking in the language. My class is 70-30, 70% speaking, 30% learning about culture. You can't separate culture from language. You have to teach a little bit of the culture, the ceremonies and things like that, the history, when you're teaching language. My first class that I taught at Brandon University in 2013 in the fall, there was two, it says Washichu girls, but they're two white girls in my class. And I asked them, why are you taking my class? And they said, because we can see Indigenous people are rising. They're starting to become business savvy. They're starting to organize. They're making big business. They're taking over things again. And when those jobs and positions come up, we want to have first crack at those jobs. They were already thinking way over there. And they pushed the students in my class to go harder. And they said, I'm not losing my job to you. They challenged each other. And they came out of there really, really strong. But they didn't say they were going to steal jobs. They became champions. They became allies for me. And I'll talk about one of them. One of them works in a school. I have a few friends actually that work in schools that don't teach Dakota as a subject, but they include Dakota in all of their subjects throughout the day. And these are non-native schools. And people ask them, why are you doing that? And they're saying, well, our neighbors are Dakotas. Our kids are going to go and work with Dakota communities. They're going to work with Dakota people, or they're going to start business with Dakota people. They should know the language. These young teachers that are starting to use the language and bring it into their classrooms are forward thinking. This is where we need to be. This is what our people need to do, is to be able to create and develop those partnerships. I'm very proud of them for doing that. We are a generation surrounded by memes and GIFs. You go on Facebook or Twitter, you're going to see memes all over the place, GIFs. You're going to see social media has such a big impact. If you look at the table that you're sitting at least one person is on their phone. Right? This is the generation that we live in. It's a good tool to have, but how do we use it to teach language? How do we use our phones to help somebody else learn the language? I hope you're texting in your language. I hope you're making memes and GIFs in your language. Those things are important because that's the medium that people are looking at right now. You can go on social media and look for motivational speakers and people teaching language and things like that on there, and they're good. But it's not enough. We need an immersion project or an immersion system for our people to learn the language. They say you can't learn your language after 50 years old. I disagree. If you're over 50 years old and you don't know your language, you go out and pray for your language, it's going to come back. If you start using your language after 50 years old and keep using it, it's going to come back. Immerse yourself in the language. There's no excuses. It'll come back. I had students in my class that were older than I am, and I had the honor to teach them and give them their language back, and they're still using it. And it doesn't matter where I see them now. They greet me in the language, and we speak in Dakota to each other. And I'm honored to be able to give that back to them. They say you can't learn your language in a university. I also disagree with that. If the instructors are innovative and passionate about their language, they will find ways to accelerate your learning. If you're taking language classes, tell your professor, this is not how I learn. Can we try this? Can we try that? I've had this over the years by students work with me. My relatives tell me this is the way I learn. And so I tweak my teaching, and it works really, really fast. My students are doing YouTube videos and things like that now, where they're having conversations with each other. One of the goals that I have as an instructor for language is 2 minutes. The end of the first term, 2 minutes. 2 minutes to speak to each other fluently. But you're not a fluent speaker yet, not in 2 minutes. Second term, if you're speaking 3 minutes, and you're able to converse without any English for 3 minutes, that's a little bit better, but you're still not fluent. By the time you finish the intermediate and the advanced stage, you should be able to have a conversation for 5 to 6 minutes. Then you can call yourself fluent. No English. Those are the goals that you have to make for yourself. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. If you can do that, you'll accelerate your learning very, very quickly. I share stories with my relatives in class to remind them of the sacredness of our languages. The boy who came already speaking Dakota. There's a young man in our community years ago. He was very connected to the spirit world. And they asked him his story one time, and he said, when I was on the other side with the Tacan, with the grandfathers, with the Creator, I already knew my language over there. We were already speaking Dakota over there. Dakota Aperture. And Wakantaka told him to come to where we live and help our people with ceremony. And so he said he would. But they wanted to test this young boy out to see who would help him. So they asked him to do a ceremony to see who would help him. So he did a ceremony on the other side, and a bear spirit came to help him. And the Creator said, that's good. He did another ceremony. The eagle came to help this young boy. And he did. The horse came, helped this young boy, and he helped him. And the dragonfly came, helped this young boy during that ceremony. He said, okay, I'm comfortable sending you down there. I know you're going to have help. So pick your parents. So the eagle took this boy among the lodges, looked around, and he said, I like that family right there. I want to go with them. So that woman ended up having that boy. That boy became a medicine man from our people in my community. It's a true story. He was 12 years old. One of the men in our community, his dad's brother, got really, really sick. And he wasn't going to make it. He went and asked this holy man over there. And that holy man couldn't fix him. He went and asked that holy woman over there, and she couldn't fix him. And finally, he turned around and he offered tobacco to his son. He said, can you help my brother? He's not going to make it if somebody doesn't help him. He said, I'll help him. He said. So he did. He did his ceremony. And he said, in 4 days, a storm is going to come. And in those 4 days, it's going to hail. And I want you to go outside this lodge and grab those hailstones and put it in my uncle's mouth. And he said, okay. And it was nice and sunny that day. They live on the plains. It was midsummer. Sure enough, a storm came, rumbling over the prairies. Then it just started hailing. This is the time our people lived in teepees. That man went out, and sure enough, he grabbed the hailstones, put it in his brother's mouth, and he healed him. We come into this world already knowing our language. We lose it because we don't speak to our kids in our language. The kids forget the language, and that's our fault. So we have to speak. We have to sing to them, even when they're inside the womb. Speak to them, sing to them. Those are stories that I put in this book. It's a level 1 book that I had an opportunity to work with Indigenous Languages of Manitoba. They had this system, and other people have made books through the system. Anishinaabe and different other language groups made a book like this, and she asked me if I would do it in Dakota. So she gave me the template, and I did it all in Dakota and sent it back, and that's what this is. The only difference is I put these stories at the beginning of each unit, because you can't teach language without the culture. So on this book, every one of these units has stories like that I put in there. And people who need them or using them are language teachers, and they're using these books and using the stories. And it's good to hear that they're using those. Our people have been trained to think and comprehend kinesthetically with their hands. When I'm teaching students, they don't pick it up right away. They have to write it down. Traditionally, it wasn't like that. If you're a singer like these guys are here, my nephew is sitting over here. We went to a powwow one time, and our lead singer started singing a song during singing contest that none of us knew, and he only practiced it once. And then when the judges came and we had to sing, by then we already knew it. We knew the song, we knew the words, we knew what it meant. We won that singing contest at that powwow that year. And he does that to us quite often. That lead singer was training us to think and learn Dakota with our ears, not with our eyes, not with our hands. This is what we're not doing with our people now, is using our ears to learn Dakota. So we have to retrain our senses. But as teachers, as educators, we have to be able to jump between different training methods, training our ears, training our eyes, training our sense of smell, our sense of touch. We have to be able to jump in between all of those, because our students all have different learning challenges or learning needs. We have to be able to compensate for all of those. We had elders in our community that I got a chance to sit with, and our elders had worries, and the worries that they had, our language is second to climate change. You can see how things are happening in our communities. Our animals, everything are changing. So that was a big concern for them, but languages has always been consistently there. Our kinship systems are almost non-existent. Without our languages, we can see the slow destruction of our cultures. Our young people are forgetting how to pray in their languages. Our ceremonies are becoming new age. Young people aren't listening to it, and they're talking back to the older people now. I never seen that growing up. I never seen young people telling the older people, telling them off, talking badly to them, swearing. I didn't see that growing up. I see it everywhere today. Wo inina, anakopna. Those are teachings that we have in our value system. It means listen. And our people don't do that very much anymore. We're not teaching that to our younger people. So in the summer, we had semi-fluent speaker training, and we gathered semi-fluent speakers and asked them to teach the fluent speakers to teach the semi-fluent speakers for a couple of days. The fluent speakers tried to teach them by just talking, and it didn't work. There was no action, there was no repetition, there was no outcomes. They didn't know what they expected of their semi-fluent speakers. So after we had a discussion, then they realized we got to take them out of this room. We got to go and do something. And so they started giving them opportunities to speak. This is how we started, in a room, and everybody just listened to the fluent speakers. It was tough for our semi-fluent speakers to learn that way. We realized that there was an intimidation factor involved as well. They didn't want to make any mistakes. They didn't want to get laughed at. But we needed to give them a place where they can practice and talk and get confidence. We divided the group into male and female. And this is one of the things that we did. This plant is called chonrito. Oh yeah, we have two other letters in our language. And can you tell the difference? Holy smokes, it both takes a lot of spit. This is chonrito. And we went picking medicines. The elders took them out to pick medicine. This is what do they call it? Echinacea. That's echinacea. And we saw dozens of different plants. And we went and learned all about them. We learned songs. We learned storytelling. We did activities. We did role playing, things like that. And it really picked up our semi-fluent speakers to a point where they're pretty much fluent speakers now. And they're very happy with how that worked. We did interviews to discuss different topics like star knowledge, history, ceremony, kinship, environment, societies. We talked about our Dakota laws. We did our storytelling like the Dakota boy I just told you about. We talked about individual accounts and teachings. So we did interviews. Here's some of the people here that I did interviews with. This is my mother and my cousins. I put up a table in the living room and said, okay, just go ahead and talk. Just talk? I said, yeah, but I don't want to hear any English. And I just put my iPad on them and I just let them go. This is my oldest sister, very fluent in Dakota, and all of the knowledge that she shared there, we talked about all different types of things for hours. Little people. We talked about little people. You all have little people that you know. You all know about the snake in the water. You all know about Bigfoot. All the stories she told, man, it was just awesome. And I have it all recorded. Singing was our first method of teaching children words. We sang lullabies, honor songs. We don't honor each other enough. One of the things we used to do in our community, our singers used to go house to house and sing honor songs to our kids, and they'd bring the kids out. We don't do that enough anymore. This is something here that bothers me, and I don't know, it's gonna probably offend you, but we're singing our national anthem in Cree. We're singing our national anthem in Anishinaabe and Dakota. Why? Sure, it's good that we know our language and we can translate the anthem into our language. But are there other songs we can put? Are there other songs we can do? Ernie Daniels mentioned John Sioux. He has a song, World War II veteran. Why don't we sing that in the morning? My grandfather, World War II. My other grandfather, World War II. Honor songs for our children. Why can't we start the day with songs like that? Instead, it's a slow, subtle assimilation that we're still doing. Oh, Canada in our language. We have to change that. You have to go to your singers with tobacco and say, make songs for our kids, make songs for our school. Prayer songs. These things are important, and you have to remember in my culture, people that in the room that are Dakota, it was said that when we leave this world, we need our song. We all should have a song. We need our name, we need our blanket, and we need moccasins to get to the other side. These things are important. So many start learning Dakota by learning songs. They don't know what they're singing. Some of them ask, but we assume that they know sometimes, and we shouldn't. Certain songs are sung certain times of the year, and only then. I hear people driving around listening to Sunland songs and singing Sunland songs just any old time. Those were only meant for that ceremony at that time of the year. When teaching songs to another, I hear the teachers of the songs whistling first. They're whistling the song. They're not singing it. They're not hitting the drum, because the spirits are going to come around and say, oh, they're going to do something, so they're listening, even though they're just practicing. This is a guy that I have a lot of respect for. And I learned a lot of Dakota, and I learned a lot of songs from this man. And I don't know if the sound is up on that thing, but if you can hit the sound on that, this is an example of learning.
I know him out Irish and says it go down. Actama hinted. Michel Husar. Go down there. We talk to the there to the eye. Dakota Shira, okay, cheese, wire, Ektaya, hello, Dakota, Ioni was a sneak kaya, Shitake, Marco Cheke, Juyedo, Dakota Shira, okay, cheese, wire, Ektaya, Dakota, Ioni was a sneak kaya, Shitake, Marco Cheke, Juyedo, Dakota Shira, okay, cheese, wire, Ektaya, Dakota, Ioni was a sneak kaya, Shitake, Marco Cheke, Juyedo.
That's, oh, hello? Hello? That gentleman's name is Hank Hotine. He's a lead singer for Riverside, Dakota. He sings everything. If you ask him if there's a song for food, he'll sing. Yeah, my stomach's growling now. He'll sing a song for food. He'll sing a song for hunting. He knows songs for everything, that gentleman. So I'm very fortunate to be able to sing with him. So let's talk about how we fix this. Let's use our languages every day, even when we're alone or with our four-legged relatives. We have to find the time to use our language. You see people working out in the gym all the time. They're posting it on Facebook. We can designate a half hour a day to speak our language. No English during this time, just our languages. 1 hour, just our languages. We can designate. Have English-free zones with your friends. Encourage and reward language use. We need political support. We need organizational support. Fluent speakers need to speak it constantly. One young man said to me, if I can speak Dakota fluently, I would never speak English again. Can you believe that? If I could speak Dakota, I'd never speak English again. That's awesome. And that got me thinking, I got to work hard to get these guys to that point. Empower our singers to make songs, reincorporate the lost systems, and begin again. When we pray, we always end with all my relations. Well, what does it mean? Mitakiwa said, it identifies us to the natural world. I went to Black Hills and I saw Black Elk's granddaughter up on the hill. And the young children that were up there were going up to pray. And she said, go up there, but pray in your language. Pray in Lakota, because the trees, the walks, the rotter, they don't know English. Our people have always been here. So use your language so they know who you are. We need these things to be told to our young people. We need training programs. We need hospitality programs, all in our language. We need our schools to take back their curriculum. We're still trying to meet provincial standards. What are our standards? We need to teach language. We need to teach all these subjects in our language. That's Indigenous perspective. That white buffalo, the prophecy, that's important. Our language is important. This is important. Because we're not the only ones that know these languages. If the gentleman in the back can play this video, I'll show an example. Scooter, bet you here. That's my horse Scooter. He passed away a while back, but he understood Dakota. My dogs understand Dakota. My other horses understand Dakota. And it seems like a funny thing, but most of you probably speak your language to your animals, and they understand it. And it's not something that they learn. It's something they know. They were born with it. So it's important. It's our personal responsibility to pass on what we know. We can't depend on other cultures to prepare our youth for the future. That's our responsibility. You need to role model your language. Demand more language in public spaces. Remember our history and document the stories and live in balance with all nature. Here's an image of Chief Sitting Bull. It says, let us put our minds together to see what kind of life we can build for our children. He said that years ago. We're still at that point. Let's put our minds together to see what kind of future we can build for our children. Let's do it. I want to close with a prayer, but I don't want to say the prayer. My grandfather passed away over 20 years ago. I still miss him. I learned so much from him, and I just wanted to share his prayer with you. So if he can play that video in the back. Oh. Howo pira tanki chicha pido. Ampeto esteu hapo. Ore Dakota kakatu itaka hechi Wounhdakapte. Take in as much as you can from this conference. We're very happy that you're all here. I appreciate all of you that stayed back and showed me the respect. Enjoy the rest of your day. Aho.
I'd like to invite Violent Okamau to say a few words.
Okay, miigwech kitagut nongom magabijain, kabi gaganojiang, anishna apichikten dagon keni na wendikidumen gigigiduinand. On behalf of MFNERC, Kevin, I would like to give you our gift of appreciation for such an awesome presentation today. Miigwech.
Thank you.
Kedamaye.
Oh,